All right, what's going on, guys? With the combat beta coming out tomorrow, I figured I would make a quick video on how you can look to gear yourself and what type of gear you should be looking at if you only have necromancy gear and want to look to expand your horizons. So I have a bunch of items in my inventory and we'll go over them one at a time. So let's just get into it. For hybrid gear, this is going to be gear that you want for basically everything. You want a Zuk cape if you have it. Now that the other styles are going to be a lot more viable, having a Zuk cape is going to be very, very good. Or a combined cape. So I have hard mode guide on my channel and normal mode guide. So if you don't have this yet, definitely look into getting it. It's going to be your best in slot cape. Besides that, we have Cinderbanes. Cinderbanes are going to be very good. Well, not very good. Best in slot anywhere where the boss is poisonable. This is going to be Solak, Carapac, all of ED2, Ambassador, actually all of ED3, all of ED1 up to Seiryu. This is going to be best in slot. Super, super good. It's also really good for Slayer. A lot of Slayer mobs are poisonable. Just Cinderbanes are really good. If you can buy these, definitely buy them. They're super good. They are fairly pricey. They're 63 mil, but it's pretty good. We also have Silverhawk boots. If you're not a Iron Man, you should be able to get Silverhawk boots. These are hybrid power boots. So if you can't afford to get boots for every style, or if you just want to have more generic gear, that's good stuff. For our necklace, we have the Amulet of Souls. Amulet of Souls is 62 mil. This is going to be your best in slot at basically every boss until you can afford an Essence of Finality. Because this is going to be more of like a budget guide and a beginner friendly guide, I figured I would do some of the cheaper stuff that's easier to access. So Amulet of Souls is going to be your best necklace basically everywhere. If for whatever reason it's not best in slot, it's just going to be your Salve Amulet. So you should already have a Salve Amulet if you've done any amount of necromancy. And if you haven't done any necromancy, get a Salve Amulet. It's really good. So now let's get into the separate styles of gear. First, we're going to go over ranged. So this is all the gear I recommend you get for a ranged setup. It's full Serenic. It is Fleeting Boots, the Decimation Bow, and Nightmare Gauntlets. So your full budget setup is going to be 37 mil. If you notice in my inventory, I don't have dual wield ranged. Unfortunately, bows are just way better than crossbows. Like, by a lot. There's essentially no reason to use crossbows, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. So the God arrows from God Wars 3 are very, very powerful, with Bic arrows being insane at poisonable bosses and full arrows being really good anywhere where you have 100% accuracy and is also not poisonable. And then your Jazz arrows are just super, super good at their respective places. They believe it's demons and dragons. I don't know if there's any demon bosses. I'm pretty sure there isn't, but there are dragon bosses. This is super good there. In the original recording, I forgot to talk about Wen arrows. They're like nuts. They're probably the highest damage arrows at most places, especially now that they affect special attacks. Basically, they're just going to amp your damage from your basics, because your basics have an on-hit effect called Icy Chill, I believe. And then your thresholds, your ultimates, and your special attacks will detonate them and give you a ton of damage on those types of abilities. Super, super strong. It's hard to know for sure like what's best where, but when arrows are looking to be very, very powerful. Also, there's Blackstone arrows, which lower the enemy's defense. That's basically only good at Virago and AOD, but it is good. So just be aware that those arrows exist. So I recorded the original video using Gloves of Passage and Animacore Zaros, which is tier 80 melee gear and then tier 85 gloves. But I decided to just switch to Bandos because Bandos gloves, legs, chest, and helm is like 5 mil, and it's not even that much worse. So ignore what you see on the screen. This whole setup is going to be like 60 mil, which is still more expensive than the other ones, but you can just use full Bandos. You're probably not going to notice a big difference. Now that the Dark Sword and Dark Sliver, or Dark Ice Shard and Dark Ice Sliver, are going to be a lot stronger, these are going to be your best in slots until you can afford Langs. Eventually, you're going to want to upgrade the main hand to a Scourge, but as soon as you get Langs, I personally think that you're just going to want to switch to dual Langs, but it's to taste, honestly, and it's going to depend a lot on the type of content you're doing. I'm not familiar enough with Melee to know where Scourge is going to be better than main hand Lang, but I've heard rumors that Langs are like really good now. Laniakia Spear is a halberd and it has tier 90 damage, but tier 75 accuracy. With the combat changes coming Monday, the accuracy basically doesn't matter. All it means is that your damage is going to get reduced by a little bit. So this is essentially just a cheaper Dragon Rider Lance that does more damage than a Noxious Scythe against Poisonable. So yeah, it's really good. And then finally for boots, we have Laceration Boots. These are just the only cheap boots for Melee. You can use Vestments, but those are 100 something mil. Then you can use Masterwork, but personally, I wouldn't recommend buying Masterwork boots because you may want to opt into trimmed Masterwork and then buying one set of armor that's basically going to be worthless once you get the other set feels bad. So that's just me. I would say just get these Laceration Boots. These will eventually become pretty worthless, or they'll just be used as a switch, but just know that it's not super mandatory to actually use these. And finally, we're going to take a look at magic. So for magic, we're going to be using full Ganodermic. This is because magic armor is very good. Magic tank armor is very good with Animate Dead. With Ganodermic and Animate Dead, you're basically not killable. Unless you're getting one hit, this is going to be extremely tanky. It's really good. At some point, you're going to want to upgrade this to Crypt Bloom. Also, if you have access to Elite Sea Singers is very good. But eventually, you're going to upgrade your Ganodermic to Crypt Bloom. But again, this is a budget guide, so not super big deal. For our boots, we're using Blast Diffusion boots. If you want to just opt into tankiness, you can go 5-piece Ganodermic. I believe the gloves and boots are between 500k and a mil a piece, but that's not a big deal. We have Carapax wrist wraps. These are just power gloves. Again, you can use the Ganodermic gloves if you want to. This will make it so that your... Actually, what does this do? I haven't used these in a while. So this will make it so that when you Dragon Breath, it debuffs the enemy, which will make your Combust do all of its hits at the same time and have increased damage. So that's just, it's really good. For damage, yeah, so that's it for the armor. For your weapons, it's going to depend a lot on what abilities you have access to. If you have access to Greater Concentrated Blast, you're going to want Wand and Orb of Psywar. These with G-Conk is almost certainly going to outdamage any staff that you could use. However, if you don't have Greater Concentrated Blast, then you're going to want to use Obliteration. I didn't buy a codex for this video, but I just looked it up, and G-Conk is 24 mil right now, which is kind of crazy. I would suspect that that's going to go up, but maybe it won't. But just add that to this price if you'd like. So to get this full setup with G-Conk, it's going to be around 60 mil. So it's not bad. It's a tier 87 staff. And if you don't have access to G-Conk, all that really matters is the level of weapon that you're using. So Obliteration is super good. Very good budget option. Magic ends up being really cheap, where with effectively best in slot or, you know, your budget setup, it's 8 mil. So anyone should be able to get a full magic setup. Range is very cheap as well. The big issue with ranged is that it's not as tanky as magic, but honestly, that's not like the biggest deal. But yeah, your range setup is going to be about 20 mil. And unfortunately, the melee setup is going to be significantly more expensive. But again, you can downgrade all of this to Bandos, and then this goes from, you know, 89 mil to like 3 mil. And then your setup becomes this, which is still 100 mil, which is very pricey. But again, you don't need the gloves of passage. These can be Bandos gloves. Laniakia Spear is very good though. So yeah, if you switch everything out to Bandos except the Laceration boots and then your weapons, looking at like a 65 mil setup, which is significantly more expensive than your other options. But again, this is supposed to be a relatively budget setup, so this isn't really going to go into the super high-end builds. Now, the reason why I'm showing all of this gear is when I release guides in the future, this is going to be the gear that I'm using. So that way you'll know, you're not like surprised by anything I'm wearing. And if I'm able to do it in that gear, then you guys will be able to do it in that gear or in better gear. So that's the main reason that I'm making this video, is for that. So yeah, that should be it. You can expect not full guides, but more rotation videos and how you can go about utilizing other styles as the patch on Monday is unraveling and as we get more familiar with it. But I'm not gonna like redo all of my guides for all 3 styles, because that's a lot of work. But what I will do is I will do walkthrough guides of using every style to kill all of the bosses, and then hopefully that will help you guys figure out, how you can go about killing the bosses. But yeah, that will be it for this video. Thanks guys for watching. If you liked the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content, feel free to subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.